Can you tell us a little bit about the process of approaching Maya Angelou about doing this film, and what was the experience of working with her?
Why don't you start?
I had worked with Oprah Radio prior to doing, I had done documentaries, and then I was working with Oprah Radio from 2006 to 2010. At that point, Oprah had said, go to Maya Angelou's home, she's older, do 4 shows a month, and so I would spend a weekend there from once a month for 4 years. And when I arrived the first time, Maya Angelou said, you'll stay here, there'll be no need for a hotel, and so there I was. And I would hear stories, whether it was President Clinton that called, or Chris Rock that stopped by, or Sonia Sanchez, or people that she would talk to. And I realized I'm listening to history. I'm actually listening to world history. This is a documentary. And so when I began to work toward that and ask her about it, one of the things that she said was, do you know what you're asking? And what that really meant was, I've already done 7 books. I'm nearing the end of my life, and you want me to relive this. And it was really powerful when she said yes. At the same time, Bob was thinking about the documentary had been done. But she said yes, and she participated fully in it.
And I had met Dr. Angelou in the late 90s on a film project, and I was just looking at the photo one day. I had a photo of me with her, and one day I was just looking at the photo, and I don't know, a light went off in my head, and I started thinking, had anyone ever made a film about Maya Angelou? And I really couldn't think of anything, so my assistant and I, we started Google searching and everything, and nothing came up. And I was always a fan of her work and was deeply affected by, especially I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. So when I just was amazed that nobody had made that film. And a mutual friend of ours connected us, and that was about 4 years ago, so that's where we started this journey. I'm not sure we knew it would take this long, but it did, so here we are.
I was wondering about her son, who actually took care of him while she was traveling around the world.
She left him with some family friends, and that were not necessarily parental to him, to say the least, and that was one of the issues why she felt compelled to go back to get him.
Was it difficult 2 years after you started to realize that she wouldn't be able to see it? Or was it this gift that you were given to give us what you did?
I would tell you that from the family's perspective, this is not a eulogy. This is a celebration of an amazing life. No criticism of your question at all, but that this is the encapsulation of an amazing life that we are so proud to just be around. And we're all blessed in this room and in this world to have shared space with her and breathe the same air. Yeah. So, love to hear, the second part of your question, but from my perspective, this is anything but a eulogy.
It was a difficult process. We knew, and she knew, that she had lived more days than what was left. And there were times when she would call to check on the documentary and say, I'm not getting any younger. I mean, she knew what was happening, and she trusted us enough with this, so we took our time and we did the best that we could do for her, because she wanted it to be authentic and she wanted it to be truthful. And so we did that, but it was hard after she passed. Every day I've been either looking at her, listening to her, working with her, and there are some times when you sit in the edit suite and you can't believe, or you laugh out loud, or you just have to get up and walk away. But as her son would say, when people said, did you grow up in her shadow? He said, no, I lived in her light. And so that's what we have to think about as we did the film.
Well, there were many challenges. The number one challenge was funding. This is very difficult, like many documentaries. Very difficult to raise the money for the film. It's a very expensive film. You could see on screen there was just a ton of archival material that all had to be paid for. So imagine that. The second challenge was, I think, taking this enormous, complex story and boiling it down to what became a little shy of 2 hours. Originally it was going to be 90 minutes, and then once we got into it, we were like, it can't be 90 minutes. So that was really a challenge to figure out how to pack this into 2 hours. We had some great people helping us, obviously, our editors, our executive producers who weighed in with their advice. So it was a team of people helping us to make these decisions. I think our strategy was really to focus on a few key stories and do a little bit more in depth on those stories, and frankly not cover a lot of other parts of her life just because it was too much.
Right.
Those key stories then hopefully shed light on the rest of her life. That was our strategy. It's up to you whether or not it worked,
Right.
but I think it did.
That one of the things I think filmmakers have to realize is right now we're in a content society. There is so much content out there. And what you really have to think about is telling the story. And you can't let anything, even your own fears, stop you from telling the story. If you don't have the archival, but this is the story that needs to be told, you have to trust yourself that it will appear, that you will excavate it. We received less than a month ago some material from the BBC, but knew that that story had to be there, had nothing to cover it, but knew that it was the story. So I think you have to tell the story as best you can, and you have to chase that story. How did the making of the story from the beginning to the end change your life? When I first met Maya Angelou, I was at WBZ, Chicago Public Radio, had read her books and was interviewing a lot of authors, women authors, Amy Tan, Isabel Allende, Toni Morrison. I was always interested in the female voice, and particularly the black female voice. When I met Maya Angelou and when I started to work on this film and spent time with her and her family, the authenticity of how she evolved as a person and really learned to love everybody and have a sincere compassion changed me, in that even when people were unkind or even when a situation wasn't what I needed, I knew that I had the strength to endure, and I knew that I had to develop the heart to forgive. She would say to me, don't pick that up because you'll have to put it down somewhere. And so I learned not to pick up hatred, not to pick up bitterness or ignorance, because I didn't want to have to lay it down.
Wow.
What I learned from making the film was that this was an incredibly inspiring story, and that we need these kind of stories in our culture. We need, especially for young people, we need stories that people can learn from, and that young people could look at this and go, she overcame being raped when she was 7. She overcame the vicious racism of the Jim Crow era. She overcame being a woman in a man's world and many other things. And she did it with grace and dignity. She didn't do it with bitterness. And that was a lesson for me personally, and hopefully a lesson that the whole film can convey as it gets out into the world. That's to me, that's the most important thing about it. She's gone, but we need Maya Angelou still. We need other people like her as well.
Oh, what was it like to have Dr. Maya Angelou as my grandmother? And difficult, easy, really quick answer. I had Marguerite Johnson as a grandmother. She was amazing as a grandmother. Then I had this amazing woman, Maya Angelou, to look up to and to be inspired by. And I feel much like my father, that I did not stand in her shadow. I always stood in her light. She lifted the family up, lifted me up, lifted my father up. She has always been there for me. She was much like a third parent. When I couldn't talk to my mom or my dad, she'd send for me. She'd be on the road, meet me in Chicago, meet me in San Francisco, wherever. And she'd grandmother me. And, what my grandmother would tell me is that I am the hand at the small of your back. I may let you stumble, but I will never let you fall. And she has played that role for me every day of my life and still in today. I would just like to say, this is the premiere, so I have to speak for my family that it's an amazing honor to, one, be here at Sundance, and for you to have put something together. spent 2 hours crying over there. We're proud to know you, and we're proud of what you've done here, and thank you. So.